This is Lost Islands, ARK's newest DLC spanning 150 square kilometers. It's one of the largest maps ARK has ever released. It features many new biomes, a huge castle, and 3 new dinosaurs. From poop throwing monkeys to these shoulder pets that basically allow you to fly, this map has it all. And I'll be trying to survive here for 100 days on hardcore difficulty. At the end of the 100 days, I'll be trying to defeat the Monkey King. Will I be able to survive 100 days on a brand new map without dying? Stay tuned to find out. Now, most ARK journeys start exactly the same, and this one is no different. Waking up on the beach, gathering the essentials needed to survive, wood, thatch, and fiber, so that I could craft myself a pickaxe, hatchet, and spear. History must be repeating itself because I caused the dodo population to go extinct once again. After harvesting all the helpless dodos, I had so much hide, which would come in handy later. I crafted myself 2 campfires and cooked the meat so that I wouldn't starve to death. While the meat was cooking, I crafted a full set of cloth armor, and since the map was still unknown to me, I decided a raft would be the best way to get around and started farming for it. It was nighttime by the time I had all the needed resources to craft it, and I set sail in search of well, I don't really know what I was looking for since it's a new map after all, but I set sail anyway. After sailing for half of day 2 and only making it this far on the map, I decided that using a raft on this map is probably not a good idea. It would have probably taken me 100 days just to raft around the outside of the map. So I parked the raft on the beach and set my eyes on a nearby pteranodon. I figured that using a bowler and a club, I could knock it out easily. However, things don't always go as planned. It was a much higher level than I thought, and it ended up just flying away. After walking a little further into the jungle, a pego tried to rob me. I dealt with it quickly, and then I thought I spotted one of those new dinos. It was so small and I kind of lost it in the trees. Nighttime started falling, so I harvested the body of a nearby tech raptor and rushed back to my raft to wait out the night. I set up a small base on the raft with a forge, mortar and pestle, and a smithy, and spent the rest of the night farming narco berries and crafting narcotics. I crafted 40 in total, as well as a metal hatchet and pickaxe. Do you guys see that in the distance? I can't quite make out what it is. Is that... Oh, it's a message from today's video sponsor, introducing Raid Shadow Legends. Are you looking for a free-to-play game to play during the large amount of downtime that ARK has? Well, look no further than Raid Shadow Legends. Raid is available on both mobile and PC. It has so much content to offer, with over 600 different champions, each from unique factions with their own storyline and lore. To PvP combat or intense boss battles, there is something in Raid for everyone. And just this month, Raid just added its newest boss to the roster, the biggest and baddest boss so far, the Hydra. Now this thing is the ultimate beast, a superpowered clan boss with many heads, each one requiring you to overcome unique mechanics in order to take it down. A little tip for anyone trying to take this thing down: once you cut off its head, the neck is exposed, which allows you to do some insane damage. But even knowing that, this thing is one of the toughest fights in the game, but it's worth it because it drops one of the best artifacts around. Now, my personal favorite thing to do in these kind of games is definitely the summoning and collecting. I love collecting all the different units. My favorite champion so far is definitely ARK'S, just because of the ability Almighty Curse, which does massive damage to all enemies. Oh, and if the big scary Hydra is not enough for you, there's more. Raid is also giving away a super limited edition champion to every player. It's esports legend and CSGO player Simple. This limited edition champion will be available for free to both old and new players in Raid. All you have to do is log in for the next 7 days between now and January 28th. So what are you waiting for? Click my link in the description or scan my QR code and you'll get free resources, as well as a free mystery champion to start you on your journey. All of this can be found here in the in-game mailbox, but act quickly because these rewards are only available for the next 30 days. Thanks again to Raid for sponsoring today's video. At the start of day 3, before I gathered too many resources, I wanted to move closer to where I planned on building the main base, which meant I would need to tame a dino to transport me across the map. Luckily, there were pteranodons all around the beach here, and after crafting a crossbow and trank arrows, I waited for one of the nearby pteranodons to land, followed it, and knocked it out. While taming it, I realized I needed to be level 38 for the saddle, so I started working towards that by crafting and demolishing foundations. A dilo completely ruined my taming efficiency by hitting the pteranodon while it was down. Luckily, I managed to kill it before it killed the pteranodon, and I hit level 38 before the PT was actually tamed. The taming finished early into the next day, and I named him Petey the pteranodon. All I needed now was some chitin to craft the saddle. I remembered seeing some bugs a little further into the forest when I was in there earlier, so I went and killed those. Now with those bugs, I managed to get just enough chitin to craft the PT saddle, and with that, I was ready to take flight. I was excited to explore this new map because as you can see from my map here, I haven't explored anything yet. Now my Pteranodon had really low weight, so after crafting a smithy and forge, I left everything else behind and set off in search of a new base location. It took half a day just to make it this far on the map, but I found this really cool pre-built castle. Not as cool as the one I built in my 100 days aberration video. Go watch that if you haven't already, but still it was pretty cool. I was leaning towards building my base inside the castle walls, but I kind of felt like that would be cheating. So instead I decided that my base would be here in the redwood forests. So I placed down a small starter base on the edge of these cliffs with plans to build something great later on. But with great buildings comes great farming, so I would need dinosaurs to help me farm. So I spent the rest of day 4 gathering narco berries and crafting narcotics once again. In total, I managed to farm up 89 narcotics. But then I thought of a plan. A really stupid plan that wouldn't actually require any narcotics at all. What I've decided to do is go for a wyvern egg on day 5. A plan that would probably end in almost certain death immediately because my Pteranodon only has 300 stamina. Now the first step of my plan was to tame a Gallimimus. These things are insanely fast and would allow me to outrun a wyvern, or so I thought. So I farmed up the things needed for cryopods, crafted a fabricator to make the polymer, and headed out to a drop to craft the cryos. I had enough resources to craft 5 cryopods. After crafting the galley saddle early the next day, I was ready to go out in search of one. I couldn't actually recall taming one of these things in my many years of playing Ark. I didn't have to search for long, I found one almost immediately at the castle near my base and bolted it, but Ark wouldn't make things that easy. Apparently these things can't be bolted, or maybe I missed, I don't know. Either way, I found another one that appeared to be stuck. However, it died before getting knocked out. After double checking my crossbow to make sure I wasn't using regular arrows like an idiot, I looked up a taming calculator. And apparently Gallimimus have a 92% chance of dying when you try to knock one out using a crossbow. Now continuing on with the search, I found one of the new monkeys carrying a baby on its back. Stopped to check it out because I thought it was pretty cute, but it wasn't a Gallimimus, which is what we were looking for. Now shortly after I found one that was stuck inside one of the buildings in the castle. It only ended up losing about half of its HP. I wasn't actually sure what these things ate, I guess berries, which ended up being correct. The taming finished early the next day and I named him Usain. With that tame out of the way, everything was in place for my terrible idea. Lost Island had 2 wyvern trenches, one of them for ice wyverns and one of them for fire, lightning and poison. Eventually I wanted to collect one of each, but for now I headed over to the trench that was closest to me, which happened to be the one in the volcano. After arriving at the trench and thinking this plan over a little more, it was pretty obvious that PD will 100% die during this process. I scouted the trench for a while and this looks like the safest part. Just below me there was a lightning egg. Hopefully it's a decent level, I don't actually know yet. And luckily there didn't seem to be too many wyverns around. So here was the plan. I throw Usain out up here, fly down into the trench and grab the egg. Rush back to Usain and set a new world record for Jamaica in sprinting and get out of there before any wyverns actually kill me. The aggro mechanics must work differently than I remember because for some reason the wyverns ended up being angry at PD instead of me. So taming the Gallimimus was kind of pointless because I probably could have just walked away on foot. But either way, I got myself a level 85 lightning egg. But with PD's death, I was missing something, and that was a way back up to my base on the redwood cliffs. So the only way for me to get back there was to hatch this egg right away and use the wyvern to get home. So I crafted 5 standing torches, which is all you really need to hatch a wyvern egg. The amount of torches burning together bugged out my sound, but after it hatched, I decided to name him Bolt. Because he can shoot lightning bolts, unrelated to Usain, I moved him away from the weird glitch torches and waited for it to raise. Raising the wyvern took almost 2 days in total, but with the wyvern fully grown, I could now head back to my base. It felt really good to be flying something with decent stamina. RIP PD though, he was my first tame and he died in the name of progress. Now that I had the wyvern, I wanted to level it up a bit. I do have to be very careful when using the lightning breath because it's possible to actually kill yourself off the back of your own wyvern when using the breath. While I was out farming EXP, I killed a pack of the new monkeys which were fighting a Diplo, and this last monkey randomly became passive. Even when I was hitting it, it just wouldn't fight back. So I guess that's the taming method for them. Wipe out the whole pack to prove your strength and then feed it to tame. It was a high level monkey, so I figured it would be worth the tame anyway. The whole time I was following it around, I was really worried that it was just randomly going to become aggressive again and just kill me. Towards the middle of the tame, things started speeding up. I guess it's just a super slow tame at the start, and then it speeds up as you go on. I didn't really have any plans for the monkey. I was just surprised how natural it was to discover the taming process. But after it was tamed, I named it Ape, just like my monkey from the ab video. But I do gotta say,
damn boy, he's thick! That's a thick ass!
I'm down bad for a monkey. I cried it up and went back to farming EXP. After finishing getting EXP on the Wyvern, I decided to move the base one final time. I had an idea in mind for what type of base I wanted to build, so I loaded up the Wyvern with all of the materials that I could carry and flew over to the new base location. This would be our new home. I had plans to build a jungle treehouse as my main base, and have this area underneath the tree as dinosaur storage. I placed down what would be my final starter base, and all that I was missing now was some farming dinos. Now, majority of this new base was going to be built out of wood, so I wanted to tame myself a beaver to gather the wood. To make sure I could tame one undisturbed, I planned to build a wall around the new base. I cleared the area, farming up the wood, thatch and fiber in the process, and then got started on crafting things for a very simple wall, which would consist of spike walls and pillars. I didn't want to go too crazy for the wall, as the main base build itself was probably going to take a long time to complete. Halfway through the next day, the wall was complete. You would think I'm trying to stop mobs from spawning in Minecraft with the amount of random torches that I used. But hey, this should get the job done. With the wall complete, it was time to start taming our farming dinos. I built 2 small traps inside the base so that I could drop creatures that I wanted to tame in them using the Wyvern. Now that the traps were built, I went out to find a beaver, and I didn't really have to travel far at all because they were literally on the other side of my wall. The other tame I wanted was a Doedicurus to farm the stone. I spotted a few when I was on my way to this base location, so that one wasn't hard to find either. I knocked out the Doedicurus first, and then the beaver. The taming finished later on day 13. I named the beaver Justin. Yes, that's right, Justin Beaver. And the Doedicurus balls. I don't know why. He can roll up into a ball, I guess, was my thinking. With those 2 dinos tamed, I had everything that I needed to start farming up the materials for my main base. The base build this time, it wasn't too expensive. It was going to be a treehouse, but the only downside is that treehouses are very tedious to actually build. The first thing I was going to need was obviously the tree platform. So I crafted that first, along with a full set of flak armor. Using Ape, I was able to climb up the tree and place the tree platform. So I guess it wasn't a completely useless tame after all. I placed a few loadout mannequins on the tree platform. These are basically just very large storage boxes that can hold up to 300 items. And now it was time to farm. The beaver was a great choice of tame. In just a few runs, I had almost 300 stacks of wood. I farmed stone with the doed and thatch using the wyvern's wings. The only thing I was missing now was fiber, so I crafted a sickle in the smithy and farmed the fiber by hand. As I said, this build was going to be relatively cheap. I finished the farming on day 15. I might need a few more resources here and there, but for the most part, this should do it. There was just one more thing I wanted before I started the build, and that was one of the new dinos. The Sonoma crops. I'm gonna go with that. They're literally all over the jungle. I think I even spotted a few while I was building the wall of this base. This little shoulder pet would make building the base a whole lot easier, as you will see shortly. So I headed out in search of one, and as I said, they were pretty easy to find. And after wasting most of the day trying to figure out why they kept running away from me, I finally figured it out and managed to tame one that was level 35. From what I could gather, you just kind of stay close to them and let them approach you. From there, you feed them chitin in the last slot of your inventory. I named this one Flappy. The one I tamed has really low stamina, so I couldn't fly very long distances. I don't know if they have any hidden features, but you can toggle between flying and gliding. The flying option will be very useful for base building. Now that I had Flappy, it was time to start crafting the parts for the main base. I wasn't certain how many of each building part I actually needed, so I crafted a few foundations, fence foundations, pillars, ramps, and ceilings. It took almost a full day for the crafting to finish, but now it was time to build. I started by placing a layer of foundations around the tree, then a full circle of fence foundations because I wanted to build a circular building. If you're thinking to yourself, what the fuck is this guy doing? I don't blame you. It looks like nothing now, but just hold out a little longer and you'll see it take shape. Next up was the pillars, then the foundations, and you should by now be able to see a circle starting to take shape. Finally, it was time to use the ramps to make the roof. Hopefully by now you can see the design I was going for. I wanted to make it shaped like a teepee. Imagine if American Indians built their teepees in the trees instead of on the ground, and that's kind of what I was going for. I still need to do this whole process 2 more times and then connect the circles together. It took me 2 days in total just to build the first one, so hopefully I can build the other 2 a little bit quicker. And by the end of day 22, the full build was complete. All of these torches are probably a fire hazard this high up in the tree, especially since the base is built out of wood, but hey, I think the base looks pretty cool. Let me know in the comments which base you preferred, this one or the castle that I built in my 100 days aberration video. As with my last base, it was time to completely ruin the aesthetic and make this thing wheelchair accessible by building a massive wooden ramp up to the base, because flying would be way too tedious every single time I wanted to get up here. After struggling for a long time to find the optimal starting point for the ramp, I finally figured it out and can now access the base without flying. The next up on my list of things to do was to move everything up into the new base and tame myself an Anki to farm metal. So I went to the snow area behind my base, got scammed by a red drop along the way, and shortly after found an Anki. I got there just in time because it was about to be killed by a pack of wolves. I brought it back to base and dropped it in the taming pen. While it was taming, I moved everything up into the new treehouse. The Anki finished taming the next day, and according to my notes, I didn't actually name it, but instead I was too busy staring at my dinosaurs' names trying to figure out if I was going crazy or was Ape's name highlighted in bold letters. It looked a little different to the others. I'm almost certain that it's in bold, but you guys let me know. Anyway, I took the new Anki out to farm some metal. I farmed up almost enough to fill up 3 forges. With the metal farm, the next thing on the list was a better method of transportation. And for this map, there would be no better dinosaur than the Maywing. So I gathered up the things I would need to tame one and headed out on the Wyvern to find it. They can be found over here on the meadows on Lost Island, and they're really a super easy tame. Honestly, they could probably be your first tame, provided you have the level for the saddle. And after looking through a couple of the nearby Maywings, I found one that was level 95. I also got lucky and found a group of sheep nearby, which I could use to tame the Maywing. So to tame one, all you need to do is trap it with 3 billboards, place a pillar in the middle of the billboards and a ceiling on top of that. This will stop the Maywing from being able to jump away. From there, it's very easy to knock it out and also very quick to tame it. But damn, why do they look so sad when they're knocked out? This one legit looked like it was crying tears of blood. When it woke up, I named it Perry after Perry the platypus, cried up my wyvern and started making my way back to base with Perry. Now that I had a good way of getting around the map, the next thing I needed to do was drop hunting, as there were still many blueprints and things that I needed in order to do the boss fight. When I was taming the Maywing earlier, I saw heaps of drops coming down in the desert. So I figured that would be the best place to start. I opened about 50 drops in total and barely found anything good. I got a really nice shotgun and a decent crossbow and pretty much nothing else. All I was getting was desert related things, which obviously I didn't need. Now there was another place to get good loot on this map, a special labyrinth cave in the desert. And now that I have a shotgun, I might be able to take it on. So I made my way back to base. In order to head into the labyrinth cave, I was going to need 2 things. Medical brews and shotgun ammo. To get med brews, I would need to pipe water up to the treehouse so that I could use the industrial cooker. I always wonder if every single person commented on the video their favorite part. I'm always curious if someone would say, yeah, I love day 27 when you set up those water pipes. Anyway, random thought out of the way, it wouldn't take long with this base compared to Aberration, as there was water right outside. So I crafted a bunch of water pipes and got to work. I quickly realized that I made way too many water pipes this time around, but there we go, I now had running water to the base. I learned the engram for the industrial cooker, but quickly realized I was missing paste, oil, and polymer. So I set out to gather those things, starting with the cementing paste. Beaver dams are pretty common on this map, so it wasn't really an issue. Next up was oil, also a very easy resource to get on this map. Everywhere in the volcano, any one of these spiky rocks seem to give you oil when you mine it. The last thing I needed was polymer. My plan was to get it from penguins in the snow biome next to my base, but either I'm blind or penguins don't spawn on this map. I'm gonna go with the second option because I couldn't find any after quite a long time of searching. So plan B was to head to the desert and kill mantis instead. It took me about half a day just to fly here on the wyvern. After killing just 4 mantis, I had all the polymer I needed, so I headed back to base to craft the industrial cooker and as many medical brews as I could. With those crafting, I started on the gunpowder, which would be needed for shotgun ammo. A full day later and the gunpowder and ammo had finished crafting, but with that I was ready to attempt a labyrinth cave. I have seen a video of someone running this cave back when the map first released and it looked pretty confusing. Lots of traps and hidden buttons that you need to press, but I was excited to try it out. So I got on Perry and headed back to the desert to the entrance of the labyrinth cave. The cave was pretty spooky as I didn't really know what to expect. The Sinnoh makes this cave so much easier though. The traps that spawn grenades could have easily killed me if I couldn't fly in here, but it wasn't as confusing as I had originally thought. But in the video that I watched about the cave, I saw the guy looting 4 to 5 drops. And in my run, I only managed to find 2 of them and both of them were terrible. Overall, I would say the cave was way more trouble than it was worth. But saying that, I'll probably have to run it more in the future because I don't really know where else to get good loot. After arriving back at the base with cave still on my mind, I decided I would get one of the artifacts needed for the boss fight. I know nothing about the artifact caves on this map, so I guess I'll start with the artifact of the hunter, which according to the Ark wiki is kinda close to my base. I struggled for quite a while to find the entrance. I gotta say though, the caves on this map seem so empty compared to Aberration. I had no idea where the artifact was. I was just wandering around randomly until a giant lizard gave me Mega Rabies, which I kind of feel like may have been nerfed because the way I remember it, Mega Rabies used to deal so much more damage. But after 2 full laps of the cave, I managed to find the artifact down some hidden path near the water. But there we go, 1 out of 4 artifacts acquired. For the remaining 3 artifacts, I was going to need myself a water tame, so that will be the next task I cross off the list. I crafted scuba gear in my base, a dolphin and bassy saddle. My plan was to first tame a dolphin and then use that to tame myself a bassalo. Shortly after entering the ocean, I found a dolphin. They say dolphins are really smart animals, but just look how dumb this one is, swimming straight down into the ground. And using my 200 IQ method, I trapped it using billboards. If it swam directly up, it might have been able to escape, but luckily for me, it didn't. I named it Dumb Fish and freed it from its billboard prison. Now it was time to look for a bassalo. Dolphins are pretty weak and can't really kill anything on their own, and bassalos are usually surrounded by manta, which obviously would be impossible to kill with a dolphin. But sometimes you can get lucky and find bassalos that are by themselves. While I was searching, I passed by this massive fish along the way. These things actually eat your raft if you drive past them. If there's one thing in Ark that scares me, just like in real life, it's got to be the ocean. After a pretty long time searching, I finally found a level 100 bassalo. And after feeding it for the first time, I could just tell that this thing was going to take ages. I only got about 3.5% for feeding it, and my scuba tank definitely wouldn't last that long. So I had to keep going up to the surface while waiting to be able to feed it again, but I finally did it. I named it Sushi. I still had things to do in the water, but I had to cryo up both fish and head back to base in order to get a new scuba tank. With the scuba tank repaired, it was time for one more trip to the ocean. I had 1 artifact to get from under the ocean, and I had to kill some squid and shark for their trophies, all of which will be needed for the boss fight. So if I swim straight down from here, there should be a shipwreck. And somewhere in the shipwreck is the artifact. This giant fish head sticking through the wall actually scared the shit out of me when I was doing this playthrough. I could hear the artifact was somewhere around, but I couldn't actually see it. It was underneath some floorboards that I had to destroy with a hatchet, which is kind of cool. I can't recall having to do that on any other map. The next thing I needed to do was to kill 2 squids for the tentacles and 1 more shark, which shouldn't be too hard. The squid that I found ended up being bugged for some reason and just continuously ran away the whole time. When it was low health, it inked me and I could not see anything. According to my notes, I was really surprised that it dropped 8 tentacles. I don't know why. I was assuming that they dropped 1 each, but I guess 8 does make sense. Either way, that was everything that we needed from the ocean. There was just 1 more cave underwater that I would run later on. After arriving back at the base, I wanted a break from anything too tedious and decided to run the Desert Labyrinth cave once again to give it a second chance for some loot. I just didn't know where else to get good blueprints, so I headed back over to the desert to give it another shot. The run this time was so much smoother and all the drops seemed to be up. I managed to get through the cave with ease without really even triggering any traps. Out of the 5 drops I opened, the only thing of value that I actually got was 1 single Rex saddle, which, don't get me wrong, was good, but I would need about 15 more saddles for the boss fight, so I was really hoping to get a blueprint instead of a pre-crafted saddle. On day 34, I decided today would be the day that I started searching for the boss fight Rexes. From what I had heard, the boss fight on this map was pretty tough, and I might actually have to put some effort into finding Rexes with good stats, so it was better that I started it early. Using Perry, I gathered as many narco berries as I could from the base and crafted narcotics. I farmed enough berries for around 700 narcotics, which are probably going to take a full day to actually craft. As suspected, the narcotics are still crafting on day 35, but with our good crossbow we got from the cave, I think we should be good to head out and find a few Rexes using the narcotics we already have. While searching for Rexes to tame, I killed a few low levels on the way, as T-Rex arms were a trophy that was required for the boss fight. After 2 full days and only 1 complete lap of the Lost Islands, I finally found a level 145 male Rex. I didn't have a trap for it, but it didn't really matter anyway, because the Rex played himself and got stuck on this rock. I knocked it out, and the moment of truth, the stats were very average. The damage was okay, but the health was really low. It was the early morning of day 38 when the Rex was finally tamed. I named him Breeder Male. Looking at the bonus stats he got, it looked like he got a few more points into damage, but the health was still really low. It might be okay with the boss. I'll just have to make sure to put more points into health when I level them up. Now that I had a Breeder Male, the next thing I needed was female Rexes, so I went out to tame some of those. I tamed a level 95 female, saved a level 145 female from a group of stegos, and after taming this one and looking at its stats, it looked like it was better than the breeder male that I had back at base. When I arrived back at base, I uncried all of the Rexes one by one and mated them for the first time. The high level female that I tamed actually has better health and damage than the male Rex, so what I need to happen now is for this egg of the female to be born with the mother's stats, and for the baby to be born a male, so that we can use it for our new breeder. Pretty low chance that I can get it on my first try, and I'm very unlucky when it comes to breeding usually, so let's hope for the best. I had 4 Rex eggs ready to go, I just needed some air conditioners to hatch them. But for that, I was missing pearls, so I grabbed the dumb fish and headed to the ocean to find pearls. There are actually so many of them just off the coast that I probably didn't even need the dolphin, I could have just swum out here and got them myself. But with the pearls gathered, I crafted electronics and used those electronics to craft a generator and air conditioners, 5 in total, which should be enough for me to hatch the Rex eggs. I was feeling pretty lazy and couldn't be bothered building a breeding base, so I just hatched them underneath this tree. The egg that I needed to keep an eye on was this one. I was actually so lucky, it was a male and it had both the health and damage from the female. On top of that, the other 3 Rexes were all female, so we could use them for breeding later. It was a really lucky batch of eggs. While the Rexes were raising, I decided to run the labyrinth cave once again in hopes of more good loot. On the run this time, I got a really crazy flak helmet and a nice crossbow. When I arrived back at base on day 44, the first batch of Rexes were fully grown. I added the females back into the breeding pools and mated them once again using the new breeder male. I would need at least 15 strong Rexes if I wanted to stand a chance against the final boss. I had 4 new Rex eggs to hatch this time and I got very lucky on this batch again. One of the eggs was triplets and one of them was twins, so I got 8 Rex eggs in total from the 5 eggs. The triplets even got the good stats, which I don't know what's going on with my luck. It's usually the opposite when it comes to breeding. So I had 6 boss fight Rexes in total and these 2 rejects over here that we don't need. I just AFK'd around the base taking care of the baby Rexes, and 2 days later they were fully grown and I was getting closer and closer to having everything I needed for the boss fight. The only thing I was missing was 2 artifacts, which were both inside the most annoying cave on this map, and a few more trophies. While I was waiting for the Rexes to come off mating cooldown, I decided to work on the remaining trophies, starting with the 2 basilisk scales. When I was gathering oil on the volcano earlier, I saw a lot of basilisks. I found 2 burrowed right next to each other in the lava, but from what I could tell, they seemed to be burning to death, which was kind of weird. After searching a little more, I found another 2 pretty easily. On the way back to base, I stopped in the snow biome to cross another easy trophy off the list, Uranus something, I forgot what they drop, I think it's their lungs. I needed 2 of those as well, and I got pretty lucky and found 2 low levels kind of close to each other. The next day I got a little distracted, you could say. Instead of making progress towards the boss fight, I decided I wanted to collect the other 3 wyvern types that I was missing. There was no real reason for it, I just thought it would be cool to have one of each. So I got on my wyvern and headed over to the ice trench first. I remember saying this about the caves being empty earlier, but compared to maps like Scorched Earth, the wyvern trenches on Lost Island seem really empty. I could only see 1 wyvern in the actual trench, so there wasn't a real threat. The first egg I saw ended up being a level 155 ice egg, which is a really high level. I took the egg and flew away, and not a single wyvern followed me out of the trench. I even waited around a little bit just to see. After that, I went over to the volcano to grab the next 2 eggs. The volcano trench didn't seem very active either. I could see a poison egg nearby and 1 single poison wyvern guarding it. The wyvern nearby was poison, which was a little bit worrying because poison breath can kill you off the back of your dinosaur if it hits you. So I grabbed the poison egg, which was level 85, and the wyvern didn't even react. It seemed to be stuck on a tree, so I went down to kill it. There were 2 other poison eggs around, which I'm assuming are also level 85. I didn't bother collecting them because the only thing I needed now was a fire wyvern egg to finish my collection. So I flew a little further down the trench, killed one of the fire wyverns that was there, and found a level 180 egg. A max level fire wyvern egg. Kind of sad that I had no real plans to use these wyverns, I just wanted to add a little bit more risk to the challenge. I grabbed the egg and started flying back to base, and once again, no wyverns followed me. After arriving back at the base, I hatched up the 3 wyvern eggs. I named them after the Powerpuff Girls, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup. I don't know why. If I remember correctly, they matched the colors of these wyverns. And with that day wasted, it was time to get back into some progression. I made it up and hatched the next batch of Rexes, which if they have good stats would be the final batch of Rexes I would need for the boss fight. I hatched 7 eggs in total, and surprisingly all 7 of the babies had the good stats. Halfway through this 100-day challenge and things were coming along very nicely, all the Rexes were fully grown. I lined them up nicely and counted 15 Rexes in total, which is exactly how many I wanted for the boss fight. I will still need to tame myself a Yudi and find some more Rex saddles, but finally all of the breeding was out of the way. Leveling up 15 Rexes is going to take a very long time. In my Aberration video, it took me 14 days to level my boss fight dinos, and leveling on Aberration is a pretty easy thing to do. So if I had to guess, I would say it's probably going to take about 20 days to level up all of these Rexes. It was now time for me to collect the remaining trophies that I needed. I still needed to collect Spinosails, Therizino Claws, and a Giga's Heart. The first 2 would be very easy, but I haven't seen a single Giga on this map so far. I went looking for Spinosails first. I found 2 of them pretty close by in the swamp. As for the Thericlaws, I found one Therizino right below my base and the other one in a forest nearby, so both of those weren't too hard to actually get. The only trophy I needed for the boss fight now was a Giga Heart, but after flying around the map for 5 whole days, I didn't see a single Giga. Thinking back on it now, I probably should have used the Maywing instead of the Wyvern to speed things up. I did a wild dino wipe, and while waiting for the wild dinos to respawn, I decided to do what I've been putting off this whole time and run the final cave for the last 2 artifacts. This cave was underwater in the swamp. Once you swim under the water, the cave opens up into yet another labyrinth. So I grabbed Sushi and headed over to the swamp. And after struggling to find the entrance for quite some time, I finally managed to find it. I uncried Sushi in the swamp and started swimming down. Now, as soon as I entered the water, I got swarmed by piranhas. Thank God I decided to bring the Bassie instead of trying to swim down here by myself. The path ahead looked very dark and was scaring me a little bit, so I waited 2 minutes for my cryo timer so that I could throw out Flappy just in case I needed to fly away from some dinos. Inside the cave was kind of like a horror movie. This cave muffled my sound with some kind of weird echo, and the bugs were spawning and coming out of the walls. Now, Arthropluera's spit destroys your armor. As you can see, they're all trying to spit on me. Usually they're pretty easy to dodge, but right here in this case, this one spat through the wall, which is a bug obviously with the game. Kind of annoying, but my armor durability was completely destroyed after that. It was probably a mistake on my end not bringing a spare set of flak now that I think about it. I could easily turn back and go to base to get more armor, but that wouldn't be any fun, would it? So I continued deeper into the cave. A little bit further in, the cave opened up into another labyrinth. I had absolutely no idea how to do this one, but hey, I'm an expert at the desert one, so maybe the skills can translate over. I pretty quickly made it to one of the artifacts, only it was behind a gate and I had no idea how to open it. I searched around the room for a button. I pressed the only button that I found and it opened something. I could hear it opening something, but I had no idea what it was. It turned out that this dead body was the clue. The button behind the body with the bloody handprint was the one I needed to press to open the gate. And there we go, 1 artifact down, 1 to go. After leaving the room with the first artifact, I came to yet another locked gate. Now, me having 200 IQ, I went back and hit the first button to see if what I was hearing before was this gate opening, and what do you know, it was. The open gate led to another room and the artifact was right there. All I needed to do now was figure out how to open yet another locked gate. I walked around for a little bit until I spotted this texture, which so obviously looks like a fake wall. From there, I found the button right next to it. Way too easy for a labyrinth expert like myself. I looted the artifact of the Devious. Now all I had to do was make it out of the cave alive. I made it back to Sushi without encountering a single mob. After arriving back at the base on day 60, there were only a few things left that I needed to do. First up was taming myself a Yudi for the boss fight. So I crafted up some med brews and went over to the snow biome in search of one. It didn't take too long before I found it at level 140. And after clearing out the Carnos it was traveling with and getting my Wyvern unstuck from some trees, I used Flappy to hover above it and shoot it with a crossbow. The Cinema Crops is really a game changer. Can't say enough how much I like this dinosaur, very useful. Towards the end of the next day, the UD tame was finished. I named it Boss because that's all I was using it for. Cried it up and went back to base. It took almost 10 full days for me to find a Giga, and I was wiping the dinos every day hoping to spawn one in. I'm sure they aren't too hard to find, I just have no experience with the map and had no idea where to look. But just in case anyone else was having trouble, I found mine over here on the map. Wild Gigas have an insanely high amount of HP and take a long time to kill. So a little pro tip for anyone trying to get a Giga Heart, just lure them into deep water and drown them. Takes about a minute or two, but it's still much faster than attempting to kill it with your own dino. And there we go, now that I had a Giga Heart, the only thing left to do, and probably the longest thing I would have to do in this whole challenge, was leveling all of my Rexes. I took all the Rexes over to the swamp biome and uncried them on the beach. I figured the swamp would be the best place to farm EXP, as there's usually a high amount of dinos and sometimes has Spinos which give good XP. Now at first I was riding 1 Rex and had all the others following me, but it seemed like only the one I was riding was getting the XP. And on top of that, it was really clunky having to keep track of 14 dinosaurs following me around. Similar to my stepsister, they just kept getting stuck. So for the next 24 days, yes that's right, I did this for 24 days. I ran up and down the swamp on Rexes one at a time, killing everything that I came across. And the sad thing is, most of the dinos were stegos, so the XP wasn't even that good. It was day 97 when I finished leveling the final Rex. I cried them all up and headed back to base to make the final preparations for the boss fight. The Rex stats were all over the place. The ones with the good stats came out at around 50k HP and 1000% damage, and the bad ones have 40k HP and 600% damage. I'd probably say it's an even mix of good and bad stats on like the Rexes that I have. I'm very lucky that I found that high stat female earlier in the challenge, or we might have been in some trouble. Now for the final preparations, I crafted myself some spare flak. Was a little worried about only having primitive flak for this boss fight. After grabbing all the artifacts and trophies from storage, I took one final look at the base. I was really happy with how this base turned out. I uncrowed all my ARK'S on the terminal and waited for them to wake up. Flappy's been such a huge help this series that I'm bringing him into the boss fight as a reward. Hopefully he makes it out alive. This was it. It was day 99, all the ARK'S were awake, all my tributes were in the terminal. I was very nervous. From what I'd heard, this was one of the hardest bosses to do solo, but here we are, the end of the challenge, the Dinopithecus King. Let's do this. Well, I thought things were going well until that happened. Don't actually know what happened, but as you can see, I died. Thanks for watching, guys.